So, hello, it's me again. Back so soon. So we've got a panel here. We're going to look at some of the trials and tribulations for the Somerset and Shropshire trials. An interesting panel. I'll let them introduce themselves because I won't do it justice. So if you could introduce yourselves quickly.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So Michael Gilroy from Aftermilk. We make a system, in this trial, a system for monitoring cattle on farm. It's the idea of being able to track the location of animals from anywhere over the mobile network.
I'm Jonathan Gill from Harper Adams University. I am from a project called the Hands-Free Hectare, running autonomous tractors within agricultural environments, perfect for a RuralFirst.
Oh, hi, I'm Duncan Forbes. I'm Dairy Project Manager for the Agri Epicenter, but also Dairy Research Director for Kingsay, one of the partners here, and responsible for developing and running the Southwest Dairy Centre, which is one of the test beds.
Awesome. I'm Karina. I'm a project manager at the Agri Epicenter, and I've looked after the 2 test beds in Somerset and Shropshire, making sure that we had all the connectivity in place for the trials to be deployed.
Ivan Antonovich, I'm a Strathclyder, yet another one. We have a track record of developing technology-based solutions for the agricultural domain, and Mike, myself and Craig, who's in the audience, started My Son and Herdsman, which was an IoT-inspired solution to optimise fertility and health in animals. And one of the greatest requirements we had to deal with was the lack of internet access, and limited internet access.
Thank you. So you guys are the end users here, aren't you? You're the customers of this network and these services. What do you really see as the great benefit to your sector that this is bringing for you, 5G technologies? Not aimed at anyone in particular, so feel free to jump in.
Oh, can I pitch in?
Yeah.
I mean, having worked in the dairy sector for decades, and as Ivan just said, there's some very clever people who develop some very clever technology, which has dealt with the incredibly poor connectivity that there is. It's not just Orkney, by the way. Somerset's pretty poorly connected too. And the potential to have every one of my cows connected by 5G on a high-speed highway is just fantastic. The amount of information that we could get, and beyond just my dairy unit, to saying the acceleration of the uptake of technology that this 5G offers is fantastic. Because there's an awful lot of farms with very poor, virtually no mobile connection. If they've got a broadband connection, it's dead slow. So if 5G can bypass that, then we're going to get this technology adopted on a lot more farms a lot more quickly. And that's going to mean better welfare for the animals, better productivity, longer-term sustainability for the industry.
Fantastic. So we've got the connectivity. Let's assume a perfect world. We've built out these networks. It's there. What challenges in terms of your actual day-to-day operations does that bring to a farm? I have to admit I'm not a farmer. So I find this absolutely fascinating in terms of what you can use the technology for in terms of tracking your herds, understanding their welfare. But what other challenges does it solve for you?
Well, one of the ones is that the information about your cows, or indeed your crop, is then much more widely available than to just you there on the farm observing your cows. You then have access, or your experts like your vet or your agronomist can be watching what's going on in your farm without having to be there. They might even be on holiday somewhere, and you've got a tricky issue with a cow. You need the vet's advice. You can use high definition video. He sees it with virtually zero latency, can advise you right there and then. And I was just talking just earlier on to somebody, and they're saying, well, how's about even remote surgery? Hey?
Really? Do you think it can go that far?
Let's try it on cows before we try it on ourselves.
That's probably wise. Karina, I see you nodding along there.
Yeah, definitely. I was also thinking about the challenges that it took for us to get where we are in order to get these results that Duncan is talking about. When we first got to the Somerset Dairy, it was still a building under development in many ways. We had walls, we had a roof, and the cows were slowly starting to settle in. But what we didn't have was stable connectivity. What we were using were, 4G routers that had limited capacity of what they could carry. And being such a remote site. The nearest point of presence handled off by PET was probably about 3 kilometers away. And that means that if you're trying to bring in 1 gig dedicated fiber to support a wide range of use cases that may need high bandwidth requirements, you're going to be involved with quite a bit of civil engineering. And at this point, I kind of feel like I'm a trained expert, having done so much of it. So the challenge we'd faced was the fact that the connectivity or the fiber ran both overhead and underground. And we'd done everything to the point of handoff, and we were expecting to get the dairy connected. But then the BT team came in, and they were just like, sorry guys, there are some broken overhead spans of fiber, and we're gonna have to get another team in. So before we knew it, we lost about 6 weeks in trying to arrange that, not only with the Somerset Council, but also traffic management on the only road, which is the A37, which didn't make a lot of people happy. But that's the challenge we're seeing with this. It's very expensive to connect these sites. It's time consuming, and you're relying on partners that don't exactly have agility as a top priority. So even if you do have a dedicated service provider to hand off on, you still got to wait for these guys to come over and set everything up for you. And it does bring 5G as a potential solution where you could be starting to communicate line over site. And that's what we're trying to demonstrate with this project.
Thank you, Ivan.
I don't need a microphone, I'm loud enough as it is. But, so one of the things that I think an enriched internet access gives the agricultural community is that there is an ever-increasing adoption of new technology solutions, but they're standalone. So they bring value to a particular process or an asset on the farm. When you increase the connectivity, the quality of the experience of the impact is guaranteed, there's more guarantee to it. But then you can start to have concept where you have individual systems and you collect the data into one area, one repository, and those data streams in themselves give value, but when you start to cross-reference between them, you enrich the information that Duncan mentioned earlier on of your individual assets, and then you can optimize the process. Now, when it's up there and the quality impact it becomes guaranteed, then you can start to open up and try to address this whole supply chain because it becomes a global solution. And that 5G connectivity, notwithstanding bandwidth latency, it's that robustness and quality of the internet access that allows this to impact across the supply chain.
Thank you. Michael, I can see you edging to come in.
Yeah, to add to what Ivan was saying, one of the big problems we have as a company is getting good data sets. So we do a lot of analytics on data we collect to develop new algorithms. So we, at the moment we can work out your animal's going to become ill. I want to be able to tell you that tomorrow it's going to be ill with this disease, but if you give it this pill just today, it'll be fine. Or preferably, if you do this now and change some behaviour or practice, you don't need any medication. That removes the medication requirements. But without a lot of data available all the time that I can cross-reference against, I can't do that. So even when we have farms, we put lots of effort in to do research, the network goes down and you can't gather the data and you can't store it on the collars because small cows are big animals, but you can't really strap a full computer to their back, so you need to get that data off fast. You're limited time to gather data. Running experiments in farms is really hard. You need home office licenses, you need vets. It's a lot easier if you've got a commercial product deployed and you can just get all the data and then go back and look at it. But without all the farms connecting up with all the information, you have no way of working out what is and isn't useful.
So that's a really good point, because you see this in a lot of other areas when it comes to 5G and data and big data. Collecting a lot of data, but translating that into information to be able to do something with it is very important. It's almost critical, otherwise so what? Once you've turned that into information, what, for the people who are non-farmers in the room, assuming there are some, what does that really mean to the business and the productivity for those environments? And how can we bring that into other areas with similar kind of environments, but not necessarily farming, but in rural areas?
Sorry, Duncan's probably best.
I was just going to try and bring Jonathan in there for a second.
So, Jonathan? Sorry.
Yeah, okay, so the idea of where we are, we're a technology integrator, and the use case of the hands-free hectare was to utilise the technology to physically get it out into the field and really use what is, in a sense, a radio communication for the 100% connectivity, the low latency and the very high data rate. And these are all required for what we're trying to do is actually run the world's first farm that can actually grow crop without ever having to sit on the tractors and work their own capabilities. Without that communication, it's going to become ever harder. The opportunity that we got from working with rural 5G allowed us to understand the bandwidth capabilities of where the next level will be and how we can integrate the technology to allow this next step to really work. That's really exciting because it allows us to then really work on real machines that are going to be farming in the next few years and take the next steps. That's the exciting part of it.
And as a consequence of that, looking at your future roadmap from where you were before this trial started to what you know now, has it changed anything?
It's been a massive change from the utilisation of over 4 or 5 radio systems that we had when we first thought of the project to now just one, allowing the full communication of the data in a simplistic platform. It's a kind of a black box that allows us to run and integrate into many systems, allowing us to reduce the cost of agricultural machinery so we don't have to have all the processing done on that set machine anymore. It can be done off-site, allowing our vehicles to become ever and ever cheaper.
Fantastic. So general question to the panel before I open it up for ones from the room and the floor. Security. Any concerns?
Security of what?
Well, very interesting enough, your data, the operations of your farm, because one of the key things around 5G with standalone architecture, sliced network architecture, is all the data you're talking about, turning into information, responding to that information. Security is a big aspect of it. Just wondering if you had any thoughts around...
I think you're correct. If I step one back away from security of the data, there is still a negotiation to be had about who owns the data that's been generated in the farm. Some of the standalone systems I mentioned before, the provider owns it, and it's not kind of, I'm not comfortable with it, but basically the ownership of that data and the monetization of that data becomes a crucial point for the overall philosophy of creating mass data and information from it. Now, one of the major strands of the work from this particular consortium has been the security overlay, and I think there's 3 or 4 experts within the group, the consortium, that have been addressing that. There's been the use case in the utilities up in the Orkneys must have a robust protection against hacking, etc., etc. And I think that's the model that can be translated to the agricultural domain also.
I can also add to that, we got to keep in mind that this has been a testbed environment, and this environment has allowed us to validate end-to-end deployments. And by doing so, we've also been able to understand the partnerships that are required to have this type of ecosystem where you have an end device provider such as Afimilk, providing the connected cow collars, but also the radio partners such as Parallel Wireless that supported the frequencies in Somerset. But also, when we think about moving forward and thinking about scalability, what we really have is an opportunity to create a blueprint that can be carried forward. And you see it a lot. When you look at smart cities, for instance, you see a lot of initiatives that are pretty much reinventing the wheel. They're starting from the beginning rather than picking up where others have left off. And I think what we can show here is that by exploring it in this initial context, we can hand off some information to others and build from that. And you can really see it in the interest we've had in MWC, especially from various government delegations, because there is a massive appetite to connect rural sites, but many people don't have the know-how to do it.
Can I just follow up, Ian? One of the challenges I faced at the very beginning of the project is that we have, as Nick said, it was a complex project. That's an understatement. So consequently, you've had multiple disciplines, multiple organisations, companies of different size, end-user communities, and the cultural differences that exist between those are significant overheads, significant challenges to make. And one of the pleasing things that's happened here is that the technology serves the community. It's not the other way around. It's the community's engagement that's made the difference here, because they set their challenges and we respond to those challenges. And that's the nature of any of the return on investment you talk about, Ian. in order for us to bring value to the farmer, we need to listen to him. Okay? He does not care the complexity of the platform. All he cares is the quality of the impact.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So I'll open up to the floor. Any questions?
Was it that good?
Oh, come on. Somebody must have that killer question. Sorry, just saw Dave's hand first. I'll come back to you in a second. Dave.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to know is, from your perspective as customers, do you care about what frequencies are used? I have an idea that you might not. However, would you care if the spectrum that you needed was more readily available? Because I'm interested in what Karina said about how difficult it was to get basic connectivity 35 years after liberalisation. What might we do about that?
I've got a simple answer. I don't care what frequencies you use. Change the planning regulations and give me 50 metre or 100 metre high antennas so that in the rural area I have the coverage. Biggest single problem I have, I've tried many experiments with 2G, 3G modems over the years. Put big antennas up, pointing at the nearest mast. The only place it worked reliably was the farm that had the local radio 100 metres from where we installed. It's completely unreliable because the masts aren't big enough, and it's a planning regulation issue in this country.
My personal opinion is I don't care. I don't care about how it's actually provided. I just want that 100% connectivity. That's all I really require for my autonomous vehicles.
At an affordable cost.
Yeah, no, completely. Yeah.
Free.
Gentleman over here had your hand up.
Oh no.
Sorry.
Well, there you go.
5G phones, sorry.
Connectivity works.
I'm interested in the panel's views on where the business case is here. Where are the savings coming from?
Yeah.
Where's the business growth? Where's the efficiency opportunities?
Of course, yeah, I can comment on that. I think one of the great examples that we've seen in this project actually goes back to the connected cow. And I'll give you just a bit of background as to why this is the case. The Afimilk cow collars run on the Zigbee protocol. Now, Silent Herdsman, before they were acquired by Afimilk, incorporated about in 2009. Now, if you're familiar with LoRaWAN technologies and others, you'll know that that alliance was just not there. The technology just wasn't available. And you also got to keep in mind that agri-tech companies are more focused on solving the problem for the farmer and validating what the pain points are so that they can sell a product, rather than thinking about the scalability and growth that comes years further down the line. So you can say, why 5G then? Why did we utilize 5G, and what can it do for the solution itself? Currently, the collars talk to a base station and require a local PC server to offload data before kind of going over to the cloud. That PC server itself is a bit of a pain point. It requires a specialist Afimilk technician to come in, install it at the site. It's expensive, about £5,000. And before you've done that, you still haven't got your equipment in a dairy. So with 5G, you can improve the latency, remove that PC server from the site, and suddenly you've got a plug-and-play deployment, which makes it very attractive for further scalability. But not only that, the current way of selling the product requires capital outlay up front. So the farmer has to, put up the money, do the surveys, and then do the installation. With that kind of new model, you could potentially look at subscription services, but you're also opening up doors to other system integrators. So you can have just much more deployment with that, rather than having a single company selling the service.
Other big thing is farms are quite remote, and going out to visit them and install things isn't fun. Farmers have got lots of really big equipment that can put things in the ground. If you can ship something that all they need to do is turn it on or plug it in, it's a lot easier. But to guarantee connectivity for all the devices you need that are collecting data around the farm, at the moment, the only way we can do that was with someone that can go in, put an Ethernet cable, put in wireless networks, and is capable of configuring the entire network. And then when it breaks, they have to go back out and fix it. If I can sell Duncan a box that he's shoving in the farm and say, put power into this, or the battery's here, charge it once a week, that's easy for him. So you'll see higher turnover in sales to rural customers for us because they can self-deploy. So it's cheaper for them to buy equipment, it's cheaper for them to deploy. Maintenance becomes easier. You just send out a replacement part and swap it over.
So,
Final point.
It's just that Stephen's going to talk about this afternoon, but one of the intriguing aspects of the agri sector, they're used to buying it outright, so it's direct sale. They buy it and they work out a return on investment. Now, one of the things that intrigues me is the migration to a service-based environment, which 5G and cloud-based environments give you. And what would it take for the farmer to move to a service-based offering of fertility optimization rather than having a system that pays back after 12 months? So business models is one of the major aspects of the that we look at. Stephen's talk will capture that this afternoon.
But even more basic than that, my fellow farmers, is persuading them of the importance of accuracy of measurement. If you measure it, then you can manage it. I've been preaching that to them for decades, and we've been asking them to do the measurement and the recording in order to be able to do the management. And it just doesn't happen because they've got other things to do, or they do it too hurriedly and too inaccurately, but they still want an accurate answer. So if you can automate the measurement, and the first time they engage with it is when it's decision support information in the palm of their hand, then you've got a real winner. And that's what 5G presents as an opportunity.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to close it there. I'd just like to say thank you very much for sitting on the panel for us, taking some questions and giving us your thoughts about how it's really going to work in your world. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.